Hey guys, Adam and Kyle here again from ProjectionHub. We are answering another SBA burning question today. Just as a quick reminder, at ProjectionHub, we help people prepare financial projections, business planning, and helping people kind of prepare and find SBA loans. Both Adam and I's background is in SBA lending, and Adam has significant SBA experience. So I am going to pitch him another burning SBA question that was brought to us. And so today's question is, so think about someone who is starting a business. They're gonna have to lease some space. They're gonna have to lease a retail space or whatever that might be. And they need to put together projections for that lease application for that landlord to review. And so we obviously know financial projections are typical for like a typical requirement to apply for an SBA loan, especially if you're a startup or maybe like an expansion. So how would financial projections for a landlord or lease application differ from financial projections for an SBA loan? And talk a little bit maybe about some tips and recommendations for that.
Yeah, this has been an interesting thing we've hit on a few times here, just I think in the last couple of weeks with clients who, are trying to lease competitive retail space. So, if it's like, hey, you're competing against national brands that might want to lease this location. If you're competing against a Starbucks, right? Like your lease application needs to be really, really strong. And so the landlords, they're going to be looking at your business plan and your projections and trying to understand those. What we typically put together is lender-based projections, which usually are trying to be conservative, right? We're trying to make sure that, hey, we're not being too aggressive. And we want to make sure that, we have some data-driven assumptions that, hey, kind of worst case scenario looks like you can still make your loan payment. And what we found is that if you present that kind of conservative approach to a landlord, they're going to say, well, we don't want you here. That's not strong enough. And the thing that I've realized or I've been hearing feedback on is that landlords have kind of a rule of thumb that they apparently that they assume that a retail tenant can pay about 10% of their revenue as rent. So if you're showing if the landlord thinks, hey, I want to be able to charge you, 50,000 a year in rent. If you send them a projection with 400,000 in annual revenue, then you say, hey, you're not going to be able to afford the rent that we want to charge. So from the landlord's perspective, they want to see, somebody doing a lot of revenue in their space because then they know they can charge more rent.
Mhm.
But if they're just getting by, then, there's not as much room for increasing rents in the future. And yeah, they know it's going to be tight. So that's the feedback that we've been getting at. I feel has been interesting.
Is it a bit of a chicken and an egg situation? So if you're in the position of the person that's trying to present the projections, because it's confusing, because a lender, they want to see that you're going to be able to pay back the loan with like conservative numbers, right? The lower your revenue can be and you still have that target debt service coverage ratio, like that's good for the lender because they know that the bar for success is not, super aggressive. But if you're the landlord or the property manager has kind of the opposite goal, they want to see that higher. Realistically, you're going to have probably maybe different sets of projections if you want to do that, the optimal approach. But yeah, at least as far as I know, if you're out there kind of searching for a location or a lease location, they're not always like transparently publishing the rate that they're gonna charge there. So like would a landlord require to see the projections before talking about what that rate's gonna be? Or like as the person that's interested in getting that lease, like will you be able to see that in advance and then kind of like reverse engineer your projections to make sure they are what they want to see but not so overly aggressive that you're gonna like set yourself up for a big lease hike or something? Like, I guess I'm just wondering like how fair is that game from the landlord's perspective and making sure you're not showing them more than is going to end up hurting you in the long run by getting charged a higher rent rate.
Yeah, I don't know. And I think it really depends on the situation. I mean, we had this conversation with a client where he's trying to negotiate with the landlord and the landlord says, hey, we think you should be able to pay 10% of your revenue in rent. And our initial set of projections for the bank were lower. They're lower than what the landlord was hoping for. And so then, the question was, do we try to get more aggressive with the projections to get up to what the lender or the landlord wants? Or do we say, no, look, landlord, like we want to rent your space, but look, we can only afford the smaller rent amount. We've got these projections to back up like why we think we can only afford that. So it's kind of I guess you risk not getting the lease by being more conservative, but it's this yeah, if you show really aggressive projections, the landlord's like, great, you can afford to pay double of what we were thinking. There's still going to be market rates for space. So maybe double is not the right way to look at it, but I do think, at least you can try to have some negotiating power with saying, hey, this is especially in a business that's going to like ramp up over time. So like a membership type business or a dental office or doctor office or something like that, where it's like, hey, we're gonna need a period of time to ramp up our number of customers or patients. I think that's where you could probably negotiate some breaks in the first year. So maybe the lease is like either you don't have pay rent for the first X amount of months, or maybe it's a lower rate for the first year and then escalates in the second year as you build up your clientele. Yeah. I I feel weird about it. I mean, as an accountant, you don't want two sets of books.
Right.
Like, you know, it's like it feels weird to say like here's the landlord version, here's the lender version. I don't like that, but it feels like it's kind of where our clients have been needing some help to navigate that and say, well, I need these projections to help me negotiate. And so I need a different version. Okay. We can still try to justify our assumptions. We're just going to be a little more aggressive.
Right.
So
I guess one solution could potentially be having like the multiple cases maybe inside the same set of projections. Like maybe you have a conservative case and an aggressive case. Because I mean, really, the only thing that's going to probably change is the number of customers, right? Like you're just going to assume you're not going to change your cost assumptions and all those different things. You're just going to say like, well, I think a conservative amount is we have 100 people a month, and an aggressive one is we have 250 people a month, and that's just probably the only change there really is you're just assuming there's going to be a higher number of sales. So maybe you probably shouldn't give that version to your lender. Like they probably don't maybe need to see that, or I don't know. Maybe seeing both is helpful for them to understand. It's even on the conservative, the loan still works, but if you do better than that, great, and maybe the lender could acknowledge it too. You may not know the answer to this, but I am just curious because at least on we're talking about the financial projections, but on the business plan side, on how a business plan written for a lease application probably has a little bit different structure than maybe what you would to give to your lender because they care about different things. And one thing that's important to like a landlord or a property manager on like the business plan side of things is they want to see like more people are coming. Like they care more about like the impact to the area and their other tenants, and so the type of business might help move that needle a little bit too. So maybe highlighting even in your assumptions that it's not just a revenue number, but like, because if you're selling a smaller dollar item or something like that, like it's a donut store or something like that, making sure you mention the assumption of like, okay, even though it's only $450,000 in revenue, we think there's going to be 700 people a month coming to our location, and that might be important to them too, like knowing that something that's going to attract people on a regular basis to benefit their other shops might help in that conversation too.
yeah, that's a good point, and that that is kind of exactly what I did with this recent client that you know the it, it was like a gym basically, and we did the first set of projections for the lender, and we were able to say, hey, you only need like 300 members or 250 members to be able to like break even and cash flow this loan, but that doesn't sound too exciting to your point about bringing 300 people to this landlord's facility. So what we ended up doing is we said, well, this particular owner was a customer, at another gym, and they figured out, hey, how many members you have at your current gym? It was like 1,000. It was like a similar concept, similar type of location. So they were able then to say, okay, what if we project 750 members for what we show to the landlord, which is still conservative compared to this other gym that we have as a comp, but it looks a whole lot better than just our 300 member version that is necessary to break even and pay your loan back. So I think that was an example of where we adjusted it. We created two versions. We still wanted to make sure that we had something to back up. I like that we were able to take this other gym that was nearby and say, yeah, we know they have 1,000 members. So if we're at 750, we're still hopefully being realistic here.
Right. Yeah. So I think, again, comparing the lease application to a loan application, one maybe positive thing is it's a little bit more subjective, I'm guessing. Like if it's a national property group, like maybe they have minimum bullet points or something that it has to hit. But like, lenders are going to have a tighter kind of application box and their expectations and making sure that things are hit. Whereas I'm assuming for a lease application, like there's different things that can move the needle. So, you to your point, it's like make sure that, revenue is not overstated, but you're probably not giving them your most conservative case. But also make sure you talk about like the benefit to the other tenants in the area, because, they might have a restaurant in the strip that has a hard time getting enough foot traffic or something. But if there's a juice bar that has a hard time getting people and you're going to open up a gym in the same strip, like that probably means something to the property group. All right, there we have it. Another kind of SBA burning question. If you're applying for a lease application, you might also be applying for a loan application, and these things definitely apply to each other. So if you got specific questions about, your situation, you're going to be looking to lease a location and you want to figure out how to best structure your projections or even potentially prepare for the SBA loan application, feel free to reach out to us. You can drop comments below or contact us directly at support@ProjectionHub.com. Yeah, you can check out the description down below to find out some of the complimentary, like free reviews we offer for situations like this. And we will catch you in the next video for our next SBA burning question.